All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Art of Masculinity. We have a special guest today who I got introduced to through a mutual friend. He comes highly regarded by a guest we had on the show, Jeff Michael Hopf. And now we have Doug Hogan on. How's it going, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Doing well, man. Having a good time. We got to chat it up a little before the show, and I am so excited to have you on here and super excited for the fans to get to listen to you and hear about your story. So thanks, man. I appreciate it.
I'm glad to be here. If I can if I can throw any words of wisdom out there, you just
I'm,
ask. I'm an open book. I'll share.
I'm sure you're gonna have plenty of nuggets, brother. Trust me. All right,
I
well
love
let's
nuggets.
let's get you started with what I call the manly round. So this is just a short little fun questions for you for the fans to get to know you and the community get to see who they're working with today.
All right.
So first question I got for you, Doug, is what is your spirit animal and why?
We didn't go over any of these questions before the show.
That's right, man.
Oh,
That's supposed to. They're gonna catch you off
this is
guard.
cool. This is cool. This is cool. All right. All right. I would say rocket raccoon.
Dude, that is
Rocket raccoon.
I love
Yeah,
Rocket. I can
I do
imagine
too.
being Rocket too.
I love rocket raccoon, but I've always loved wolves, and for a long, long time, I collected wolves, like wolf statuettes, wolf pictures, all kinds of. When I was traveling, driving home from the military, I would stop at these little um, Indian souvenir shops, Native American souvenir shops. I'd pick up little statuettes of wolves and stuff. Through the years, I just kind of disappeared, and mostly after the Marines, I started collecting military stuff and patriotic stuff. But yeah, rocket raccoon be first. Before that, though, was definitely wolves.
That's awesome. That's fun because Rocket Raccoon's like funny as hell, but he's like badass too. I like him.
Well, yeah. I mean, he shoots rockets, and I mean, come on.
Right? I love it, man. That's a good one. All right, your next one is what song, when you hear it, you absolutely have to sing along
Oh, you're going.
to?
Oh, you're going after this with Dr. Feelgood. I, I don't know why. I mean, to me, that was like Motley Crue's worst album.
Oh yeah.
but
Yeah.
uh, but uh, but I was in my late high school years when that came out, and it's just something that kind of stuck with me. So it's got a really nice beat at the front, and it kind of sucks me in. I'm like, oh no, I'm trapped. And so there we go again. We're singing the songs out loud. So yeah, that's my
Oh,
answer.
that's funny. It just comes out. You're just
I
like,
can't
oh,
help it.
I love it. That's good. All right. Your next one is if you were a DJ, what would your DJ name be?
Oh, oh man. I'm trying to find some kind of a. I never gave this an ounce of thought in my life.
Nope. That's the
Yep.
point. You're an author. You got to be creative, man.
Dirty DJ Doug.
Hey, Doug.
I don't know.
I love that. That was actually one of the best ones I've heard. Dirty
It's
DJ.
it's got to be something that sticks. It's got to be something different.
That's a good one. I'll take it.
Thank you.
All right. Your second to last question is what is something that when anyone does it, doesn't matter who it is, they look stupid doing it no matter what?
Farting. Because you're either claiming it or you're altogether ignoring it. Either way, you look stupid, right? Because you could rock the room. Everybody's like,
yeah,
and you're like, pretend like nothing ever. Right? So, or if you say, oh yeah, that was me. That's a good one, right?
yeah.
Okay, you're ignorant for claiming it. So yeah, I'll say farting. Yeah, passing gas. It's no matter what you're doing.
That's awesome. That's a good one. I'll take it. That was close to one of the other ones we had, which was pooping. So
Yeah, nobody can do that pro and look good.
No, I don't think you're gonna look good doing that, no matter what. All right. So, and then your last one is if animals could talk, which one would be the rudest?
Cats.
Dude, everybody's nailing the cats, man.
Absolutely. Well, because cats got an attitude anyway. I mean, they don't even have to talk. They don't need a voice. I think if every animal in the world could speak, I don't think cats would because they're too good to talk to people anyway.
I'm not talking to you.
Yeah, cats are kind of like people in their own way, but they got their own individual attitudes. They just, they want what they want, and you can't take anything from them. They're hard to train too.
Yeah, and they're just like they're kind of assholes. Like they'll do whatever
Yeah.
they want. They'll like jump on you in the middle of the night and smack you in the face, and then you wake up and they're just like, "Meow."
You know what though? How many? And you've seen the memes. Cats will sit on a shelf next to something for no reason, slap it off,
Yeah.
just knock it off the shelf, and then they watch you run and pick it up, put it back on there. Why? So they can knock it off again.
It's like their form of entertainment. Man,
Yeah.
I might have to change this question up because it's collectively getting the same answer. So I think we nailed this one. It's got to
Yep.
be everybody's cats. Everybody. I've had a few different ones, but cats collectively, everybody. Oh, well, cool, man. That's good. I like it. You had some good answers on that one. Had some new answers, which I enjoy. So that's fun. So let's talk about Doug Hogan, man. Tell us a little bit about where you came from and how you became the man you are today.
Okay. Well, my story starts back in the 1980s. Let's see. I was born in 1972, so I'm not ashamed of my age. I'm 47 in October. I'll be 47 in October.
You don't look
And thank you. I appreciate that. Um, so when I was 6 years old, so we're looking at 1970. I'm not good with my math, right? So 1978, I was 6 years old. My mom and dad divorced. My mom took me and my baby brother. He was just born. He was an infant, a little toddler. Took us away from the home. I didn't really understand everything that was going on. We ended up going to another neighborhood altogether. And my dad, I remember him one time, he came by and to talk. I don't know if it was marital issues. I don't know if it was parental issues, but he came over to talk to mom. And we didn't have anything. We were living in a house that had no power. It had, it had no electricity, had no running water. I remember very, very clearly having to take a shower in the rain gutter, or in the gutter rain. Whenever it was storming or raining, I'd go outside and catch some rain and take a shower. But my dad had come over one time. He's sitting there talking, and I didn't have anything. I had a little piggy bank, a little velvet a bunny rabbit with a little slot in its back, to put my pennies and stuff in there. But I wanted to give that to my dad, because I really didn't know what was going on. He didn't kind of ignore me, and he took it, and just kept on talking to mom, and he set it on the floor, and he got up and left. And I don't know why that sticks out, but I think is because I feel like I lost my dad at that point, and I tried to give him something, and he didn't seem to care too much about it. He left it. We ended up moving from there. I don't know, that really affected me in some kind of a way, but I'm not sure. I haven't put my finger on how it affected me. It's just something that is stuck in my memory. But my mom ended up moving from that place where we was at. And we did a lot of home jumping. Like we would go from one place to another place. We go from, a home to maybe government housing, and my mom would remarry and we go someplace else. So my mom had been married a few times, and her second husband was with my father. Her third husband was a man that's I'm going to leave unnamed at this point, but he moved us out into the country, and he was an aggressive man. I remember him slapping my mom around in the back room. I couldn't see anything that he was doing, but I could hear it, and she would be crying, and I'd be sitting anxiously in the front room listening to it as it happened. He'd come out, charging out, and I would stand up and tell him to leave her alone. He would get kind of lippy. He never ever laid his finger on me for some reason, but he did threaten my life several times. I remember he used to have a Plymouth. He one time we was living in a trailer, and we sit on the porch, me and my mom, and my little brother. I was in 5th, 6th grade at the time. And he had his finger or his foot on the clutch, one foot on the clutch, one foot on the gas, and he was kind of revving and kind of, lunging his vehicle towards us, and he was yelling out at us, telling us, that he's going to take his foot off the clutch and smear us over the side of the trailer. I don't remember us getting up and moving. I think at that point we were so jaded by all the abuse. We just kind of sat there and took it. There was another time he pointed a shotgun at my face, and threatened to blow my head off. There was another time he threatened to burn us alive in the house while we're sleeping, catch the trailer on fire and kill us in our sleep. That man, I didn't know at the time. My mom told me years down the road that he had siphoned all the gas out of his Plymouth Horizon. I'm sorry, out of her vehicle. He had a Plymouth Horizon, but he siphoned the gas out of her vehicle. I can't remember. I want to say it was a Nova, a Chevy Nova.
Mm-hmm.
But it was laying over against the fence on the corner of a lot of the property. There's no neighbors anywhere to be seen. And he had that car on empty all the time. The reason for that was so we couldn't escape. He wanted to have an abusive relationship. He wanted to, molest my mom. He wanted to beat her and do all this and that anytime he could, anytime he wanted to. And if she needed to go get groceries or he wanted her to go get groceries, she had to go either by herself or take one of us, but the other one had to stay back, kind of like an insurance policy.
Mm-hmm.
So one of us would stay back, the other one would go get groceries. And she would do that for a long, long time. But unbeknownst to this guy, she was taking an empty milk, like a gallon of milk carton, and she's filling up with gasoline. And she was bringing it back little by little. She's pouring it into the gas tank of that Chevy Nova while he was slept because he's a heavy sleeper. And one night, I guess she had topped it off, and she came and got me in the middle of the night. She woke me up. She says, "Hey, Doug, wake up. It's time to go." And I was kind of groggy. I'm like, "What do you mean?" She says, "We're leaving. Grab your brother, grab some clothes. We're leaving." So I grabbed a hamper full of clothes. I grabbed my little brother. She had a couple things in her arm. We slipped out into the night. We got into that Nova, and we drove away. And he came looking for us, but she didn't. She wasn't playing along with that that mentality where if you've been beaten, then you're afraid to, you take them back. I forget what it's called. But they keep taking, remember the syndrome? Stockholm syndrome. Thank you. Yeah. So she wasn't about that. She's like, I am not doing this. She was brought up in an abusive relationship, not a relationship, but an abusive household when she was a child. So she was kind of used to it, but she wasn't going to live it out, especially with her kids involved. Yeah. So she cut it out, and she escaped with us, and we made it out there.
Wow, that's amazing, man. And it's so powerful to see, like, to know, and we'll get into it more, but to know who you've become today, to come from such a background like that. I think it's special to see you, but also for other men to hear, where you've come from starting at that point, man. That's an amazing, and that's amazing on your mom to be able to, have that awareness and to do that for you guys, to get you guys out of that situation.
Well, I've always thrown kudos to her. She's been a very strong woman, in my life, and she raised us with $300 a month because my dad never paid child support.
Mm-hmm.
He was never there for any event in my life. He didn't come to my birthday parties. He didn't come to my graduations. He didn't come to anything I ever did in my life. He was never there for it.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't until years later that my wife actually, came, when I was in the Marines, I was overseas. Played like a peacemaker almost, and brought me and my dad back together again.
Wow.
Yeah, well, it went good for a few years. He's not really in my life anymore.
Yeah.
The old dad came back, and he wasn't there when I needed him, and so he's we just don't communicate. We don't connect. I lost his phone number on purpose. It is what it is. I know there's people out there that don't think that that's the route I should go, but I've been dealing with this most of my life, and I'm tired of getting hurt. I mean, that's how I play it.
Yeah, man. And no one who can ever judge you. That's really your decision to make. And if this is what makes you the happiest version of yourself, then why would you do that to yourself to make, just to cause pain?
Absolutely. Because, I'm not a victim, unless I allow myself to be a victim. I can take all that and say, hey, I'm a victim here, and just, keep going back to it and keep getting hurt and say, I keep playing I'm a victim, but I'm tired of being a victim. It ain't going to happen. I'm not a victim. I ain't going to play the victim. I cut it out.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. Because, like I said, no one can judge you, and the fact that you gave him a second chance, while your wife broke her peace, like, that's still cool. Like, a lot of people wouldn't even give him. I know there's a version of me I would have never given anybody a second chance. That was like my policy for the longest time. You screwed me over once, that was it. So for you to even do that, it's very special, brother. I give you so much kudos for that.
Well, thank you. I'm not saying it's over. I mean, everybody changes,
Sure.
but I did my part, and I would just like to see him do his part, but he knows my number. If he knows where I live, he's never been here but once, so, and I haven't moved. So he can show up on my door anytime, and I'll open up the door and we can talk,
Yeah.
But I'm not, right now as is, I'm happy.
Yeah.
So
And that's what matters, brother. You're happy with your family. So you started out, you had this rough upbringing. Your dad's gone. You had a stepfather who's rough, and then you guys grow up, and then you get into school, right? And so like how does this past, right? How does this affect you in school?
My school really played a unique part in who I am because my father's middle name was Leslie. My grandpa's middle name was Leslie. And for one reason or another, the family name that was in the middle of everybody's, in the middle of everybody's, they had a front name, a back name, right in the middle there, everybody's middle name was Leslie. But me, they said, let's name him L.Douglas Hogan. So there I am, for the world to see. Everybody asks, what's the L stand for? I love the guessing game, but I have revealed it on your show for the very first time in my life.
Oh,
So, yeah.
oh man, I feel special. I feel special for the following you have and the readers you have for this to be the kind of reveal of what the first name was. That is crazy.
Well, it's fitting because,
Yeah.
it's the art of masculinity, and I've reached a part in my life where I'm not a snowflake. You can laugh at my name if you want to. There was a time when I was a kid, when that's what we're going to talk about. But there was a time when I was a kid, I wouldn't put up with it. But now, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I still don't go by it. I go by L.Douglas Hogan. But when I was a kid, though, yeah. So my mom and dad named me Leslie Hogan, and about third grade, there's another girl in my class. Her first name was Leslie. She, it's a unisexual name. Everybody knows the unisexual. Adults know that. Adults know it's a unisexual name. But
Yeah.
kids are ruthlessly cruel, unforgiving. They're monsters. Kids, kids. So they were calling me names like lesbian and all those other crazy little things that I fought all the time. And there came a time, when I got tired of the fighting and I got tired of the confrontations, and my mom allowed me to start going by my middle name. So we'll just go by Doug, So when fourth grade come around, we went and registered at school. I was Doug Hogan, and that worked for a really long time through summer. But as soon as grade school started again, the kids, I couldn't fool the kids. The kids know what my name was all through, because they went to school with me in first, second, third grade, Now all of a sudden my name has changed. All of a sudden my name is Doug, So I got a lot of fights still. And so we ended up moving. My mom remarried, and we ended up moving. Actually, she married the man that the abusive guy that I just talked about. She married him, and we ended up going to a little town, consolidated school. And this, I was going by Doug there. Now, my mom had organized in advance. She's like, she talked to the principal. She talked to the teacher. She's like, all right, please, whenever you call him, his name is Doug. We're not going by Leslie. We're going by Doug. And so, the day of judgment finally came. I was sitting there, first day of school. I'm sitting there. Had an amazing summer break. I've been living in a new neighborhood. Nobody knows my name. Nobody knows my name. Yeah. I'm hoping they're going to call me. The teacher's going to call me Doug, and everybody's going to know me as Doug forever. And my bad name will finally be gone. I'm sitting there. The teacher's going off the roll call. She called Billy. A little boy Billy raised his hand. Joanne. Little Joanne raised her hand. Well, Tommy. Tommy raised his hand. Leslie. Crickets. So it was dead silent, right? And everybody's looking around like, who's Leslie? And she's like, Leslie? She got louder with it. Leslie Hogan. I'm like, oh God, it just happened. It just happened again. And I'm like, oh no. So I'm like, I can't hide it now. I'm like, I raised my hand in here, and all the kids were looking at me. They just erupted into laughter. They started laughing. I'm like, I popped. I just stood up. I was tired of it. I had taken as much as I could take. I was tired of the fighting. I just threw my table up, my desk over, and I stood up, and I had this crazy, I could feel it in between my ears, this crazy face, this crazy mind. And I said, my name is Doug. Screamed and throwing things. I'm like, these kids, they probably never seen anything like that before, right? The teacher, she didn't say, all right, relax. She didn't say nothing. The kids didn't say nothing. From then on out, I was Doug Hogan.
No one's questioning you on that one.
Nope.
I doubt many people would make fun of you these days too, being a five former Marine. So
Right. 6'5", yeah, 6'5", 225, former Marine.
I think most people are gonna leave you alone, even if you got called Leslie. So
Right.
oh, that's funny, man. Okay, so you get there, you finally get to this point where Doug is now we've created Doug, right? So and then you get into we talked about this a little bit before, so I'm gonna bait you on this one, but
Sure.
you had some issues with school to start with, right? Like you just had like some behavioral issues, right? And I think a lot of boys go through that, and it's kind of cool to hear about your aspect on that.
Yeah, so I had all this this the abuse that my mom went through, that I had to witness, the threats against my life, uh, the name calling, the fighting, all this kind of collected down inside of me. It was just kind of brewing inside of me. I never had an out, I didn't have a man in my life. I had several men, uh, but they weren't good men. I didn't have somebody, to teach me how to fish. I didn't have somebody teach me how to play football. I didn't have somebody take me to the ball game, teach me how to play baseball.
Yeah.
I learned everything that I learned either on my own or from my friends. So growing up, just being raised by a mom, I had to find some personal mental fortitude.
Yeah.
I could scientifically, I should have been a statistic, because all the professionals will tell you, if you continue down this road, if you live like this kid has lived, if you experience the things this kid has experienced, you'll reciprocate that, right? You'll stay in that, because the rate of recidivism is returning back to it is extremely high.
Sure.
And it's like that. But I believe that we define ourselves. I can become a statistic, or I can channel this thing, and do something with it. So there was a time whenever I was playing basketball with he was my best friend, and my mom had got away. This is right after we escaped from the psychopath. And I went back to, it was a junior high school, and we was playing basketball, and we were competing, bantering back and forth, because we were shooting some hoops and stuff. And I was never good at sports, and I was always really, really skinny, 6'5", and back in high school I weighed 150 pounds. I mean, it was
You sound like my brother.
like Skeletor, but Skeletor, he at least had muscles, right? I was more like Esqueleto from Nacho Libre, that was like
Love
me.
pop culture reference, yes.
but I didn't have chips, I lived off of sugar and crackers. But he thought he'd take a shot at me. So he's like, yeah, he's like, good shot, Leslie, and it popped. I popped again, I ran over to him, and I smacked him. I slapped him. I didn't say slapped. I close fist punched him right in the face probably 3 times. And he never hit back that I can remember. And that was last time he ever name called me again. Right.
That's funny.
There's actually some more. So going from there, from high school, I decided, that I needed to do something extra with my life, with all this pent up aggression, with all this pent up anger and frustration that I had, because I had a rough, I can't say that I was ever physically beaten. I wasn't. Everything that I had was all mental abuse. My mom had endured a lot as a child, because she grew up being physically abused, and she got into this marriage where she was being physically abused, and we were all being mentally abused. But after high school, or I should say during high school, 17 years old, I got thinking I wanted to go to the National Guard. That's what I want to go to the National Guard. Desert Shield was starting up, and I wanted to go overseas, and I wanted to fight me some Middle Eastern Iraqis, get them moved away from Kuwait, and do something well with energy. And then I got to think about that. No, I don't want to go to the National Guard. I'll go to the Army. I'll go full-time Army. That's what I want to do. And I got to thinking about that. I changed my mind from that. I want to go to the Marine Corps Reserves. Somewhere in there was the Navy, before the Marine Corps Reserves.
You just want to taste a little bit of every single
Right. A little salt and pepper.
one.
But I finally settled on the Marines, you know. So when I was 17, I joined. I signed the paperwork and I joined the Marines, and I joined '03 Open. So if you've ever interviewed a Marine, you know that '03 is in the infantry.
Mhm.
It's so all your '03s are something infantry. '03 Open is you throw me in infantry anywhere you want to. I don't care what it is. I'll take anything you give me as long as it's in the infantry.
Yep.
So they did. They tossed me in the infantry. I guess my ASVAB score was high enough that they threw me in the tow gunners platoon. So I ended up in G. Michael Hoff's platoon. He was actually a corporal at the time. And I came in as I want to say a lowly PFC.
Yeah.
Took my promotion not long after. I was a Lance Corporal for 3 years, and right on like the day I was supposed to promote to corporal, I EAS. I got out of the military. My end of active service was over, so I got out of there. But entering back into civilian life, I hope I'm not droning on too long.
No, this is great, man.
Okay.
I love this. I want you to keep talking because this is just a beautiful story. So it's really cool to hear where you're coming from, man.
Well, thank you. Cool. So after I got out of the military, I felt like I needed to put. I felt like I still had something to give, some kind of aggression, some kind of anger, some kind of something. I feel like I wasn't done yet. All right. So I had been in the Marines for 4 years. I had deployed, but I didn't get to go to combat. That's why I joined up, you know, to go to Desert Shield.
Yeah.
I staged. I didn't go. I staged for the Los Angeles riots, you know, which was also a very scary thing, which I talked about in one of my books. But I staged for that. Didn't go. Everything I can't remember what else there was. I can't remember what all sprung up between 92 and 96, but there was a few little skirmishes and things that sprung up, and we would stage. I mean, 1st Battalion, 1st Marines, first to fight. That was their motto, right? So we'd stage every time, but we'd never get to go. And it was kind of frustrating because that's why I joined to begin with.
Yeah.
So having not done any of that when I got out of the Marines, I wanted to do something different. So here I am, you know, 4 years a trained killer. You know, I'm in the civilian life now. And I'm working in a plastic factory.
You're like, what the hell do I do?
Yeah, I feel like a fish out of the water, you know,
Yep.
making
Oh,
plastic shipping tubes. I didn't know,
Sure.
you know, I did that for a year and a half. I'm like, this ain't working, you know. So I applied for the correctional industry. I applied for forest rangering. I applied for state police. I applied for even Walmart security. So you laugh, but that's how I got my start, brother.
That's crazy,
So,
man. That's bad when you're like, Walmart security is my option. No offense to anybody that does Walmart security, but I mean, when you get out of the Marines, you go to a job, and then you're like, I think I'm gonna go Walmart security.
yeah, you should like Mr. Manager. Hello, I'm a train killer. I like to.
Okay.
So I applied for loss prevention at Walmart. It's a classification there, and they trained me, and I got to walk around, and I was in charge of all the security, you know, all the emergency policy. You know, I put everything together, the camera work. I built all of it, right?
Wow.
So
Cool.
I did that. Meanwhile, I'm still waiting for something better to come up, and I finally get an inkling or a call to go to work for the state of Illinois at Central Management Service sent me a letter to work for Illinois, the Sexually Violent Persons Treatment and Detention Facility.
Wow.
So it was a brand new program filed under the Department of Human Services, and basically what they were doing was they were taking sex offenders who had pretty much no hope of recovery and civilly committing them from prison to the Department of Human Services. So they're going from Department of Corrections to Department of Human Services, and they're under this blanket of corrections, but they're being ran by Department of Human Services, which is more of a mental health kind of a department.
Yeah.
So I worked with a lot of sex offenders for a long time, talking rapists and pedophiles. You know, so I learned there how to not let myself become victim of somebody who can manipulate, because those rapists are very, very good manipulators. They could talk you into believing the sky is green, you know. Just they're really good at it. Now the pedophiles, as far as the rapists, are good at that. I don't know if I said it backwards or not. The rapists are good at manipulating. The pedophiles not so much. No. So they're kind of I don't know, they're a little aloof. where you got your rapists who are almost always antisocial personality disorder, narcissistic, and you got your pedophiles who stalk little children. They're very patient. They'll take years and years and years to um, groom and manipulate an entire family just to have their way with that kid, so they'll be alone with them one day, right?
Wow.
So they sent me a letter to go and be in that program. I went to be in that program, and I did that for 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of 8 years, I put in for a transfer and went back to Southern Illinois. As soon as I got to Southern Illinois, I was working at Chester Mental Health Center. Right now, this is Illinois' only maximum security mental health facility.
Mm.
So I'm finally starting to feel like I'm in my environment. Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a police officer one day, and it's something I just got an itch for. And so I went to I was living in a little town, and I put in an application, and they put me through the police academy. And I went through the police academy, and I worked part-time police for 10 years after that day. So sometimes I worked 2, 3 departments at one time, 3 part-time departments, and full-time at Chester Mental Health Center.
Wow.
So I had a lot of irons in the fire.
Did you
I
do
worked.
profiling for
What's
them?
that?
Did you do profiling for them? The police department?
You mean like, like for criminal investigations and stuff like that? I mean, we learned how to criminal profile, of course. I mean, they teach you how to do that in the police academy, and then there's specialized courses that you can take to learn how to profile people.
I
But
was just wondering if you did it because your experience with rapists and pedophiles, if that was part of your niche when you were working for the police force.
I always think about that kind, because I have no doubt in my mind that the way the things that
Yeah.
the direction my childhood took me in drew me down the path that I ended up walking, because I felt like I wasn't going to be a victim ever, and I was going to help other people who were victims.
Mm.
And there was a book that was introduced to me. I can't remember what the title of it is now, but it basically compared us to, like, you got sheep, wolves, and sheepdog. All right. So you got the general populace out there who know that there's dangers out there, but they choose to ignore it sometimes, right? They just go about their lives because they know they're being defended by the sheepdog.
Mm-hmm.
The sheepdog has teeth. The sheepdog fights off the wolves. The wolves' only job is to get in there and take out the sheep. They want to eat the sheep. They want to take the sheep. The wolves are the predator. The sheep are the prey. Now, the sheep has no capacity for violence whatsoever. The wolves have all kinds of capacity for violence. The sheepdog is different, though. The sheepdog has a great capacity for violence, but uses it to defend the weak.
Mm.
And that's how I view myself, as a sheepdog. The childhood and the way that I was raised and the things I've accumulated, the knowledge base I've accumulated through the years and the different things I've done, I choose not to be a victim. I choose to use my skill in such a way to defend the weak. So that's kind of the course I've taken. I don't believe I've met, I don't believe I've peaked, my plateaued yet. So I'm still eager to see, what's down the road for me. I no longer police. I did that for 10 years.
Yeah.
I took up writing books, and I took a promotion at Chester Mental Health Center. I'm one rank away from being the highest ranking person in the hospital. So,
Wow.
I had too many irons in the fire. I quit policing. I enjoyed it. I love the work. Writing is so much fun. I get to meet so many new people. I get to be creative. I reach more people writing.
Sure.
And everything that I write, minus I think No Light Beyond, I talked to you about before, it's pretty much about bringing awareness to topics, to some kind of issue. So whether it's fiction or nonfiction, it's about bringing awareness.
That's awesome, man. And I can't wait to read some of your books, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So you get into this, and you're now like a best-selling author, right? And you're just cranking out amazing books one after another. How is like, I guess, like, how has the mentality changed? You came up from this rough upbringing as a young boy with no direction from a man, and then you're developing your masculinity kind of ad hoc, really on your own. You're probably seeing people here and there you respect. You get into the Marines. I'm assuming that conditioned you a little bit, and then you transition out and you become this really good man who's, you got a beautiful family now, and you're leading a life that you chose to live and chose not to be a victim. how has that masculinity been built and helped you to structure kind of who you are now?
I think at some point down the road, I made a decision, that I was going to have to be who I was going to be and not let anybody or anything in my life define who I was. That's not to say that the events that I've been through in my life, don't have a part in defining who I am, but they're not the ultimate say, because we all control our own destiny. The things that influence us are the things that impress us, rather. The things that impress us are the things that's going to influence us. So very early on, after I came out of my childhood, I grasped that concept, maybe not in those words, but I started looking at the people that I respected, and I started taking notes, whether they're mental or physical notes. I allowed the people that were impressing me to influence me. And there's a great many great men. I can't even begin to enumerate them right now in my life, so that goes for all of us. We can, the thing, if you're impressed, by bad people, the bad people are going to influence you. If you're impressed by smart people, you're going to study, because that's going to influence you, and you want to be a smart person. And this is the track of every person on the planet. You're going to be impressed and influenced. Where the fork in the road is which one of these we choose to go down. You could be a good person, or you could be a bad person. You can choose to be a contributor, or you can choose to be a taker. You can choose to be a predator, or you can choose to be a prey. Or you could be that one, like myself, and great many others, who have a great capacity, to do violence, but they use their capacity to protect and defend. I've sworn an oath 3 or 4 times. I've sworn an oath each time I've taken a police officer job. When I was a deputy, I've served at every level of government, from municipal police to county deputy, to now state service, and I served the federal government as in the United States Marines. And I've seen a great many things. I'm happy to say that although I did as a kid want to go to war, I'm happy to say now as an adult that I'm glad I didn't. There is a certain you've ever heard of survivor's remorse? All right, so we got combat veterans, and I'm not a combat veteran, but that's not to say, I feel bad, that I didn't get to do my part, and I know it's not to my own fault. I know combat vets don't hold it against me, but it's just something that it's one of my weaknesses. I'm not, in no way perfect. That's one of my faults. It's one of my flaws. I joined for a purpose, and I feel like that purpose was taken from me, and I didn't get to fulfill it. So now I feel like I'm doing it a different way. And so a while ago I mentioned I don't believe I've reached my plateau yet. I don't believe I've peaked yet. I still got a lot of. I had a best-selling book, but I don't think it's not at the level I want it to be. I'm not at the level I want to be.
Which one was the bestseller?
Let me pull it out here. I'm gonna bury it at. So it's Oath Takers.
Oh, awesome.
Now, Oath Takers, the whole gist of Oath Takers is to bring awareness to patriots, to let them know that we're sliding, and where the United States goes, it all depends on those of us who have sworn an oath to the Constitution. It's not necessarily for people who are sworn an oath to the Constitution. It's it's for patriots. Right. Because that book right there, I mean, it's an eye opener, and included in it, I put the United States Constitution right smack in the middle of it, and I did that on purpose. So it's I talk about a lot of issues in there. So if there's anybody in there that's sensitive, I do it professionally and ethically, and I don't talk in a way that hurts people's feelings. I don't write in a way that hurts people's feelings. But there are people out there who's going to be offended no matter what they read, no matter how you talk to them. You can't please all the people. It's just not going to happen, so, but that was my bestseller, and, it's been bestseller a few times.
That's awesome.
I like it. So,
and then
but I'm kind of biased towards it.
And that's a nonfiction book, right? If I'm not correct.
It's my only nonfiction book, actually. I'm working on another one right now called Surviving Martial Law. I'm kind of pecking away at it because I got several of the projects going. So whenever I can, I'll get to those, to the surviving martial law and some of the other things, but one project at a time, right?
So I have to ask you, because this is something I think a lot of men struggle with. People struggle with this in general, but I think this is really where men struggle, is because our ego gets in the way. We've built up this bravado about ourselves that if we show any type of weakness, then people look at us differently, right? So
Hmm.
one of the things is, you were told by, Jeff, right?
Hmm.
Say, hey, start writing some, fiction. And you said to him,
I said to him, I don't know. I don't think I can write fiction.
so you got put in this really uncomfortable space, right?
Well, yeah,
And
because we're talking about a guy that coached me, through the entire. He coached me through, not writing, but the publication process.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know, and I felt like, could this guy, we served together. We bled together, we sweated together. We ate the same trash.
yeah.
We kicked the same dirt. And I said, he helped me, coach me through publishing my first book. Now he's telling me you should really write fiction. So I really, I didn't think I could do it. I didn't think I had it in me. But that night, remember what I said a while ago? I said, the things that impress you will influence you,
Yeah.
right? Jeff was a best-selling author when I found him. Okay, he had the New World series. The End was, he had 2 books out when I found him. 2, not counting his the children's book that he wrote. He had 2 books I'm aware of, and he was a best-selling author. That impressed me. Therefore, it influenced me. Therefore, I'm laying in bed one night, staring at the ceiling with my eyes open. It's pitch black in there. I had nothing to stare at. My eyes were open. Just looking into the darkness, and this massive, huge story came into my head, because at the time I was still fiending over, the contents of Oath Takers. Like, this book right here is my passion.
Yeah.
I had a lot of passion that went into this book, and I'm like, what would happen? What would happen to the United States if everybody that swore an oath to the Constitution? What happened to all the law enforcement officers? If all the police officers, if all the deputies, if everybody's ever, the politicians, everybody's ever sworn an oath to the Constitution, decided to let their guard down just enough so that we lost everything, where would it go? How would it be? What would happen? And I tell you, I believe I got it pegged. And
I'm
I've had
excited.
a lot of people that were reading this story right here, Acts of Defiance.
Uh-huh.
This is the prequel to the Tyrant series. This is how I still believe it's all going to go down. This is
Wow.
just it's a novella. It's not a very thick book.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's relatively small. It's an easy read, but this, my friend, is how it will start. I'm dead certain of it. People are still, that read my Tyrant series, they believe. I've had one woman that she believed I was a prophet. I
Oh,
kid, she wasn't joking. I'm not joking. She says, I believe the word of the Lord is speaking through you.
oh no.
Yes, she believed it, because at the time I wrote that Oath Takers in the first book, I think, the second book, maybe all of them, when Obama was in the administration, and we were at the time seeing what we felt was an ebbing away, of our constitutional rights for this and that. Remember, the Bundy Ranch stuff, and
Yeah, yeah,
how they
yeah.
were secluding away partitions where you had no First Amendment areas. This is your First Amendment speech area over here, and this is this area. And also we had the Michael Brown thing going on in Ferguson when I was writing Oath Takers.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a hot topic, but I believe it that you read this, I'm telling you, you'll be like,
Yeah,
holy cow, I can see it happening. And you're
yeah.
going to say, I can see it happening. But I actually didn't write that book first. The book that I wrote first after I wrote Oath Takers was book 1 of the Tyrant series. All right. So this is Tyrant the Rise. This is it follows a few homesteaders who are trying to survive under the radar,
Yeah, yeah.
in martial law. All right, so that's what that book's about. They're trying to get by, and they get sucked into something much bigger than their own, much bigger than themselves. So the war spreads, and they got to fight along. So I introduced Main Core, and anybody that's ever studied Main Core and conspiracy theory understands that there is a list that the government's keeping on people. That some of us, like I'm kind of dangerous. The government believes I'm dangerous. They believe that you're dangerous, right? We're dangerous, right? So we're trained killers. So they're red listed almost. So there's a list out there called Main Core. Research it. It's kind of what that's about.
That's interesting.
That explodes into the biggest book I've ever written. I had too much material at the end of my series, but not enough to make a fourth book, right?
Ah.
So I shoved it all in Endgame.
Oh, cool.
It 85,000 words. I usually try to stick around 65, 70,000 words.
Okay.
Usually killed at 68,000, but I had some stuff that I needed to close off in that book there.
Wow.
There's a character that was introduced in book 2 there by Light, and her name was Tori Cunningham, and they wanted me to give her her own book. So I wrote a series of short stories and stuck it in here, and it's called Tori's Journey. There's 5 short stories in here, 5,000 words each. Kind of follows her around in her world, in her post-apocalyptic world.
That's cool.
That wasn't enough. They wanted her to have her own novel, right? So
Yeah.
I wrote Blood Core, right? So Blood Core is her own novel. This one is really cool because it picks up. It could almost be a book 4 to the Tyrant series. It's like it picks up right after Endgame, Tyrant Endgame. So it shows the landscape right after the entire Tyrant trilogy is over with. You know, she's taken up a job as a bounty hunter. She's trying to get by. We have a new economy. We have a new president. You know,
Wow.
the United States is fractured. We have shadow governments going on, a lot of conspiracy theory stuff going on. So it's a good book. It didn't really take off though, so I let it sit.
Yeah. That's cool though. So this is coming from, and I hope everybody is paying attention where we started on this journey about his book writing, because this is a guy who said he couldn't write nonfiction, and now he has like 2 full series of fiction. Sorry, he's got 2 full series of fiction books.
Yeah, cause I didn't even mention After the Pulse, right? So
Yeah.
I got another series that I've started, right? This is After the Pulse, book 1, Homestead. This is about a guy that he's coming out of the military, of the Marines. He's trying to get home from Tennessee to his family in Georgia.
Yeah.
Deadfalls, book 2 to that. So I'm working on book 3 to that.
That's awesome. So needless to say, you were put in an uncomfortable situation as an adult after you've been in the Marines. You've developed this man you are today. You were very uncomfortable about it. You were on edge about it, and you took it head on, and you put yourself in it, and now you're thriving in that uncomfortable scenario. That is what it's all about, in my opinion. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's actually defines everything I've ever done in my life. You know, you take yourself. I mean, you did it too. You know, you stepped out. You went to the military. You went to boot camp straight out of high school, correct?
Yeah.
So did you not step out of your comfort zone, get placed into a difficult situation, and make the very best of it?
I always tell everybody I was too dumb to know any better. So
Tell me you weren't the one volunteering all the time for every assignment that came up.
No. I was not that guy, but I was
All
just
right.
I was
You're not that dumb.
I was too dumb to know it wasn't a. I was too dumb to know it wasn't a. It was incredibly hard, and then I was too smart to not volunteer for everything, I guess.
Well, you're intelligent. You're intelligent. You gotta give you kudos for that.
Oh man, so that's cool, because I think a lot of times guys, especially as they become adults, we have a hard time of saying, here's an uncomfortable thing. This is why guys, in my opinion, stay in these jobs of 9 to 5. We're told we got to do this and make a retirement, and you can live a happy life at 65, right? And we live that comfortable life because we're scared of getting uncomfortable and seeing what we really can do if we put our minds to it. And I love the story about you because of the fact that you did this, like you said, throughout your life. And then as an adult, you still put yourself in that writing books, which to me is an amazing thing. It's an amazing feat. And now you're a bestseller and doing all kinds of good things with it.
I've been caught in some precarious situations, police work and at the mental health center. And I hate to say it, but sometimes I feel a little numb. When a crazy situation arises, I believe 100% that hesitation in the wrong situation can kill you. It can cost lives. Yeah. Especially where firearms, and weapons are pertain to them, So I remember one time not long ago when I was policing, I was there. I got a call that a woman had been punched in the face on a barge. There was a bar that floats in a little town near me, and they've turned it into a bar. And I guess the guy punched a woman in the face, and he pushed an old man off into the river.
Oh,
And I live right on Kaskaskia in the Mississippi. So good thing is he got pushed to the Cass and not the Mississippi. But
yeah.
I respond to that call, and I'm walking around this crowd of people, and you know, there's always a gun on the scene when an officer shows up. It's theirs, right? There's always a gun on the
Yeah.
scene, so you're always super alert. You're hyper alert, and over time, you know, after years, you become drained somehow. It's affected me some way. You know, I can't really explain it, but that when I finally found him, I stopped him on the road. He was on foot, and I chased him down into a darkened area, and my radio wasn't working down there because I had gone down, 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 out of line of sight of the repeater that was in the police cruiser.
Yeah.
So I was by myself, and I was calling for backup on my radio. Nobody could hear what I was saying, and I got this dude, you know, was facing me off, and I got a weapon trained on him, and it took a lot of coaching, but he finally, you know, surrendered. Those kind of situations, you know, where you're alone, you got to make a decision by yourself. There's scary moments. And then there's other moments where I have a ton of support and a ton of help, and I have to make a decision. Like one time we had a patient at my mental health facility where I work that was in his room, and he's tearing his furniture up. He was every bit as big as I am, and everything in his room was destroyed. His dressers, his desk, his bed. He was breaking things into shards of wood, and he was throwing them around his room. And I had a whole horde of security staff with me, and I was the leader at the scene. And I said, "We got to go in there." And they're all like, "We ain't going in there." I said, "We got to, man. He's going to hurt himself." You know, here's the thing about the mental health code: we got no weapons, we got no pepper spray, we got no batons, we got no tasers. You know, it's just us. It's just the way it's written. The law is written in Illinois. We have nothing. So we got two choices: we can take a beating and get hurt, or we can do what we got to do and lose our job. You see what I'm saying? It's a very bad situation. So it takes some really tough grit to get in there and you know, take over situations so that everybody keeps their job, nobody gets hurt. You see, so I said we got to go in, and I opened the door and I charged in. You know, he threw something at me. Thankfully, you know, I've been trained a lot. You know, and I parried it, and I grabbed him, and the others saw, you know, that I was on him, and they advanced as well, and we got him contained.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's
those kind of
amazing.
situations, I
Yeah.
mean, that does something to you.
Absolutely. I mean, it's when you're around those situations enough, you know, your heart rate doesn't get up, and your decision making is clearer because you know how to handle yourself, which I think is very important for that. And you know how you're very confident in what you're going to be able to do. Not that you may have the right decision at that time, but you know that any decision you make, you're comfortable in yourself. And I think there's something to be said for that. And like you said, it's using that discretion when you have that capability to know, okay, this is when I get into that, it's not necessarily numbness, but I think it's like you put it perfectly, hyper awareness. You understand what's going on, you understand the situation. So
You have
that's
to make a
absolutely
decision. And your people are behind you, whether it's for right or for wrong. You have to make a decision because you
yeah.
just can't stand there all day and let it go on without an answer.
Yep. Yeah. That's, that's something in the military that, and I think across every branch, well, most branches, I would say, at least us guys that were part of like infantry units, but it's we'll make a decision. It may not always be the right one, but we'll
you
make
got
it.
you got to.
Yeah, I mean, I've lived my life by that ever since I was in the military. It's been like, hey, man, you have to make a decision because, like you said, inaction sometimes, in especially in violent situations, is the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, it could
So,
cost lives.
yeah. Well, that's cool, man. Well, we're kind of getting towards the end of this now, and I have thoroughly enjoyed having you on, Doug. This has been probably one of the coolest, and just because your story is so amazing and best conversations I've had. Um, I have one final question for you, and it's the one that I have for everybody. So it's always great to get everybody's different perspective. But what does the art of masculinity mean to you?
Oh, you know, I believe that there's a certain spirit, if you want to call it a spirit, in the world today that is trying to blur the lines between masculinity and feminism.
Hmm.
And I think that there's a certain way that men should be, and there's nothing wrong. This new movement going around about it might have actually be starting to die off, but there was a very staunch movement not long ago where people were saying, calling masculinity toxic.
Yeah.
What a bunch of baloney.
Yeah.
Masculinity is not toxic at all, and I believe there's an art to masculinity. And it is rising to the occasion, being the best that you are. It's not saying that feminism is bad. It's not saying masculinity is better than feminism. It's saying that manliness is okay, and there's certain ways to be a man. And if that means that you've got to work, 40, 50, 60 hours a week to make ends meet, that's an art. And if you can pull it off, hold yourself together, that's artistic, and that's what it means to me.
I love that answer, man, because that had a lot of my perspective in it as well, especially with the toxic masculinity stuff. But that's beautiful, and it truly is an art. So I appreciate that. Well, awesome, Doug. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. I'll let you get back to your amazing family who's probably waiting for you to get out of here and spend some time with them. So I appreciate you, brother. And we will get, last thing is tell us where we can find you and tell us what you're up to coming up, your next steps.
Sure. All right. So I'll cover my next steps are. I didn't get a chance to cover this. This is Coulter Saloon. This is a Western that I have recently written. It's my newest release. Yes, it's an awesome cover. And yes, I did it. Who doesn't like chicks with guns, right? Yes. All right. So I did that. And the one thing I did that, because I like to write about bringing awareness, this is the one thing I wrote that has that. It's like a crossover genre, an ode almost to zombies. I don't call them zombies in the book. They're called different things. But it is a post-apocalyptic / zombie crossover genre. No Light Beyond. I had fun writing it, but I don't feel like it was my calling to write that. It's just something I wanted to try.
Yeah.
Archie's Heart. This is no longer in circulation, except if you go to audible.com. It is available in audible.com. But this novel right here was written by myself, Patty Glaspie, Lisa Akers, and Boyd Craven. And when we did this, 100% of all the proceeds in ebooks and print went to the disabled American veterans. We ended up giving them $6,000 for the short contract that we had to make money off of this. We contracted not to make a dime off of ebook or print. And so at the end of that contract, instead of divvying out, any more money to ourselves at the end of the contract, we just closed it up. So it's no longer in circulation. As far as what I'm up to now, I'm actually working on a novel in G. Michael Hoff's world. The New World series. He's put together. I don't. Let's see. I don't want to give away too much of his information. I'll let him give away his information. But I will tell you that I was asked to write something in his world, so I'm writing in his world. And the title of the book is Lockdown. And if anybody's read G. Michael Hoff's New World series, they know that several massive EMPs struck the United States in an act of aggression and terror against the United States, and it took out our electrical grid. So my story happened during that timeline. I have a police officer who was framed for murder, and he was actually being transferred from the facility where he was at to protective custody. And in the middle of the transfer, this first EMP goes off in the Midwest. And it puts him in a precarious situation because he's always been kind of a man of the law, a man that, black and white kind of a guy. And there's right and wrong, strict right, strict wrong with him. But now he's seeing there's no more law. And he's got his family's safety looming in the back of his mind. He's got the fact that he was framed for murder, and he's got vengeance in the back of his mind. And here he is, handcuffed with other prisoners in the middle of this opportunity to get away. So that's what the story's about.
That sounds amazing.
I'm not even done with it, but I'm having fun. It's going slow. It's just my work has been so draining. Your listeners can contact me on Facebook.com/honor your oath. Right? Remember, oath takers, honor your oath. So that's an easy one to remember. I'm also on, I have a website, L.Douglas Hogan.com. I'm on Instagram, L.Douglas Hogan. Instagram's where I put like all my active life.
Yeah.
Like if you want to go see masculinity, I got two Tough Mudder. I don't have all my pictures up there, but I got two Tough Mudder runs in there. I got several Appalachian trips, Appalachian Trail hikes. I go in section hikes 2 or 3 times a year to the Appalachian Trail, and I hike that.
Nice.
I go to the gym. I exercise. I lift weights. I didn't get a chance earlier to talk about the pituitary cysts I had in my brain, that kind of wreaked havoc on my endocrine system. I overcame that. And I was a 6'5" kid, weighed 150 pounds. Now I'm 6'5", I weigh 225 pounds, So I'm not solid muscle. Some of that is 47 years of age, it's, but mostly it is a weight I put on some not fat weight, but muscle weight.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at and what I'm doing. I don't have a Twitter account, but I'm eager to get some. Look, let me tell your people that I am having a contest, if you want to call it a contest,
Ooh.
over on my Facebook page.
Okay.
If they go to Honor Your Oath at Facebook, Honor Your Oath, and find L.Douglas Hogan, my author page, and they like it, comment, and share on the posts, my recent posts in there, you scroll down, you'll see it. There's one for, there's a post I made for Coulter Saloon, and there's a post I made for Oath Takers. If you like, comment, and share those, your name will be entered for a chance to win every single book that I've ever written autographed, including the no longer in circulation Archie's Heart. This is the last one I have. All right. So I do have a signature on here, one signature of my own and one signature of Patty Glaspie. So the other two authors are really good friends of mine, but I'm not going to be seeing them until May, so I'm not going to get their signature. But everybody's welcome to come out to Heritage Life Skills in Waynesville, North Carolina in May and get those signed by the other two guys.
Awesome. Yeah, well, we'll get all this posted too. So, don't think that this is going to go unheard. So, everybody that's listening will have this posted with the show notes, and we're going to get this out when I post this on Instagram as well, so you guys can take a look at what Doug's talking about, and make sure you click and follow him because he's got some amazing stuff going on in the future. Brother, I appreciate you so much. I'm so grateful for you being on here, man. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. I feel like I made a new friend tonight.
Absolutely, brother. That's what it's about,
Cool.
Well, thank you. And for all the listeners, as always, drop the ego and stay humble. Until next time, guys. Thanks, Doug.
You bet. See ya.